Hello. I'm so excited for this video because today I'm talking about something that is so close to my heart. Science is finally proving something that I've known for years without a doubt, but now nobody else can doubt me either because science is proving that creativity is not something frivolous, that creativity is actually medicine. And in this video, I'm going to be sharing and breaking down the science behind it, sharing how our brains and our bodies react to engaging with the arts, and why it's the missing ingredient in your well-being. I'm Liz, I'm an artist and medicine woman, but not the kind of medicine that comes in pills. The ancient kind of medicine that humans have been using to heal for centuries. And today we're getting into one of my favorites, creativity medicine. For years, the modern world has classified art as non-essential to survival, and art's importance has continually been dismissed and marginalized over the past few decades. We can see this through the removal of arts programs from our schooling systems, from the rise of the trend of beige, and from the way that we love to gatekeep art as something only for the most talented few and not for an everyday person or an everyday routine. But the truth is that creativity is our birthright as humans. Humans have been creating since the dawn of time, and it is innately in us to create. So I'm so excited to share all the science that's coming out now, only in the last year, things like this really becoming to be clear and researched in the scientific world. The research is proving that arts and art engagement is essential, and we can really tell it by the way our brains and our bodies react to it. So let's get into some of the stats that they are finding in studies. There is a study that was done at King's College in London that found that within 20 minutes of simply viewing a piece of art, that a person's cortisol levels, cortisol being our stress hormone, that dropped by 22%. And inflammation in the body, that dropped by 30%. And let me just repeat, that was simply from viewing a piece of art, not even making it, just simply looking at art. But let's talk about what happens when we actually engage in making art, because the statistics around this are really mind-blowing. There was a longitudinal study done that looked at people with depression over many years. And it looked at those who engaged with arts and those who didn't engage with arts. And the ones who engaged with art improved their symptoms by 22%. And this last one, y'all, I seriously could not believe it myself, even though I have experienced this. There were peer-reviewed studies that found that programs that incorporated drawing in early intervention with PTSD helped reduce PTSD symptoms by 80%, y'all. Whoa. And I say I've experienced this myself because I am just coming off of a long journey of recovery from my own PTSD, and I've been using my art along with other non-pharmaceutical medicines to heal my brain, body, and emotions. And it has been so pivotal in my journey. But what I'm loving is that I knew that for a long time, but when I would tell people, they would brush me off because for some reason we've decided that art is not important and that art is not essential. But it's not a nice idea anymore. It's truly measurable. These studies are finding that it's not just about mental or emotional health. It's down to a physical level, that it supports the functioning of every major organ and system within your body. They are finding that when people engage with the arts, they age more slowly. And let's put it in numbers, y'all. In a study, they looked at people who engaged with art versus people who did not engage with art. And those who engaged with art were 31% less likely to die. Yes, that's a third of the people. Their risk of dying was lowered. And all of these numbers are so mind-blowing, but let's put it down into the what's happening actually in the body. There's so many things that are happening in the body that we can't get to them all in this video. But I'm going to touch on 4 of the top things that I think you need to understand about why arts and art engagement is so pivotal for your health and well-being. So first things first, art does something very cool in our brain. It lights up multiple regions of the brain, unrelated regions that we don't normally all light up at the same time. And what happens when our brain is engaged in so many different regions is something called complexity science. This is something new that's being studied, or a new frame for looking at science behind things. And complexity science, basically what it means is it's the study of a large interconnected system where the cause and effect is not a simple unidirectional, this causes that and that, like a domino effect. In a complexity science system, these things affect each other bidirectionally. And it means that there are so many factors and so many things happening in the brain that you can actually trigger hundreds of mechanisms that your brain can begin activating and healing and creating new connections, versus a pharmaceutical, which can really only work on maybe 1 or 2 pathways in areas of the brain. So that is why art is so phenomenal for helping us heal and change our health and well-being. Let's put it into some more concrete terms even than that. Let's go back to that statistic about reducing PTSD symptoms by 80%. It's wild that simply adding drawing to our standard care will reduce that much more of the symptoms. But when you look at the science, it actually makes a lot of sense. Because when you draw, like I said, all sorts of parts of your brain are lit up. But in particular, the one that's important to know for people who are healing from trauma is that the area of your brain that is responsible for speech and verbal processing lights up when you're drawing. Because even though you're not speaking, you are expressing and processing a feeling. And so why that is so important for folks who are healing from trauma is because when trauma happens, that part of your brain that is responsible for verbal processing, it actually gets deactivated. And this is why folks who are healing from trauma often struggle to put their experience into words, to be able to process what happened. But when you engage drawing into the process, the people with trauma can actually begin to process without words and eventually find the words to process their experiences and let them go. It's so, so powerful. And talking about powerful, let's really go back to what I said about our brain and bodies proving that art is essential. And how do we do that? Because we know that art activates our reward system in the brain. The reward system is really delegated for only the most essential survival things that we need to do. It activates during eating and food, activates during movement, activates during sex. All these things that are crucial for our survival, the brain rewards us through all sorts of neurotransmitters like serotonin, dopamine, oxytocin, and endorphins to tell us to keep doing that activity so that we can survive. And so that is how we know that our bodies really see art as essential, because art and arts engagement light up that reward center of our brain, and they send off and flood our brain with all those feel-good chemicals. Now, if we go back to that study on depression and we think about it connected to this science, it makes a whole lot of sense. If you are struggling with depression, that means that part of one of the symptoms that's going on in your body is that you have lower amounts of serotonin and dopamine. And so art and arts engagement become a natural way to increase those chemicals in your brain without pharmaceuticals. Another way that arts and arts engagements are so powerful for our body is that they actually help our nervous system regulate, and they help us with emotional processing. When our nervous system regulates, it means we're shifting out of a stress response and into a parasympathetic response, also known as rest and digest, or stay and play. That stay and play is what really connects to creativity, because creativity is infused with play and curiosity. And so when we move into that stay and play state, that's when we can begin to decrease our cortisol levels, like we saw in that first study, where just viewing art lowers our cortisol, decreases our inflammation. But even if we actually engage with art, we're getting even more of those benefits, because using our hands in a tactile way, in repetitive and rhythmic motions, are also helping calm the body state down and even change our brain wave states. So it's literally bringing us out of the stress response and into a state where we can relax and feel calm and at peace. And even beyond that, they did a survey of folks who used arts regularly and to understand what they were using the arts for. And the amazing thing that they found is that arts engagement help us enact a wide variety of strategies for emotional processing. You can detach, you can distract, you can discharge your emotions, you can accept your emotions, you can reappraise your emotions, and you can engage in problem solving to create a solution to move from the emotion that you're in and into a place of peace and relaxation. And this is why creativity can really feel like a reset. And the truth is, you're not just relaxing, you're influencing your body down to a cellular level. And you're changing the body at a physiological level. It's not just mental, emotional, it's our physical bodies too. And lastly, this one is probably one of my favorite findings that I found, which is the broaden and build theory, which actually shows that when we engage with arts, even if we're just viewing it, this puts us into a state of awe, wonder, curiosity, expansive states that open up our receptivity. One of the biggest blocks and challenges for change is that we're stuck in this contracted, stressed out state where the brain and the body are not going to create change because they're only going to stick to the same familiar patterns, thoughts, and beliefs because they're not open enough to receive new information. And so by engaging with art and other activities that evoke awe and wonder, what actually happens at a neurological level is that it increases our openness, it increases our flexibility, and it increases our possibility of thinking in new ways, taking on new patterns, and really just being in a different way. And it really moves you from this state of contraction into a state of expansion. And when we're in a state of expansion, that is when change can really happen in our lives. And so that's it for today. I know I dove into a lot of science here, but there's more that I want to share, and I will be coming back with another video on creativity medicine next, where I share even more about how it is helping you improve your health, wellness, and your mental capabilities. So if you liked this video, I would love to hear in the comments, what was the most surprising stat or learning that you heard today? And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe so that you can be reminded about my next videos coming out soon. And until next time, I'll see you back on the internet.